We're talking to Brandon, who is the GM of Still Austin. You guys may have seen our review. We are very, very impressed, especially for it being such a young bourbon, and we'll get into that. But we are excited to see where this is going to go and learn a little bit more about the story behind it. I mean, for our reviews, most of the time we get the bottle, we get a little info packet, and we do our review and link to the site. But we're pretty excited to get down into why this is so good at such a young age and what makes it so unique. So with that, we can go ahead and play our intro reel, and then we'll get going. Guys, thank you again for tuning in to Whiskey Cult. You like that little intro reel?
That was great. It was pretty slick.
Right? I put it together in like 5 seconds before our first time going live. I should probably update that. Anyway, so we are here again with Still Austin. Pretty excited to talk about this. But first, we want to tell us a little bit about you. How'd you get in? Oh, hold on, we got one more popping on. Bada bing, there's David.
Hey guys, sorry I'm late.
Hey David.
What's going on, man?
How you doing?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
Good.
Excellent.
So Brandon, tell us a little bit about how you got linked up with Still Austin and a little bit about your backstory in the whiskey industry.
Yeah, sure. So I've been in hard alcohol my whole adult life pretty much. I started in wine when I was 21, running a wine bar and restaurant back in Michigan, where I'm from. Bounced around the restaurant industry for a while, mostly dealing in wine. Ended up running sales for a hard cidery for a while that had started in Michigan. Got purchased by Anheuser-Busch when I was there. That brought me to Chicago. I worked in Chicago running sales for them for a while, just Virtue Cider is the name there. And then about 5 years ago, an investment group I had worked for previously back in Michigan purchased a small craft distillery there, asked if I would move back and be the GM. So I did that for about 2.5 years. And then through an industry connection, got connected with the folks at Still about a year, almost 2 years ago, I guess, and wasn't looking for another job. But they were looking to hire a GM, somebody to take over day-to-day operations of what they were doing. And I actually had a buddy who lived here in Austin, and I had never been to Austin and hadn't seen this friend in 6 years. And they offered to fly me down for a weekend. So it's like, I'll take the free trip and hang out with my buddy Michael. And so I came down and saw the distillery, and we can get kind of more into the details there. But I was pretty convinced fairly quickly that I needed to move here and help this company grow. So yeah, I've been here in Austin, Texas for 16 months now or so, running day-to-day operations for Still. And that culminated in the release of our new flagship spirit, the Musician, which is the bottle you see behind me right here. So we just released this almost a little under 2 months ago out into the market. Kind of replaced anything, all the things we had released prior to this. Is new branding, new bottle, new whiskey, all that, and we're super excited about it. And it's kind of lighting the world on fire at the moment. Good problems.
Yeah, and one of the things that I have to say is I love that how forward you guys are. That it's a Texas whiskey, and that's something to be very proud of, because you see a lot of people that'll say, they'll hide their bourbon statement. If it's not made in Kentucky, they'll kind of sneak it somewhere down on the label, like, hey, made in not Kentucky.
Yep.
But, you guys even have, let me see if I can get a good, you guys even have this little silver sticker that says certified Texas whiskey. I mean, you guys are pretty proud of that. What makes Texas such a good spot for whiskey, man?
Well, the grains are a big part of it. Texas grain that we site. We're full mill, mash, distill, age at the distillery here in Texas, and we're super proud of that. a big difference is the quality of it's white corn that we get. Where most bourbon you'll find yellow corn. Here in Texas, the corn's a little bit different. It's the corn you'll see in a lot of our tortillas and corn chips here, chef quality corn. A little bit bigger kernels than what you'll get with yellow corn, mostly higher sugar content. And we're thrilled with obviously the quality that we're getting out of that. The other big component of what makes Texas whiskey interesting is, and this is what I discovered when I came down to Austin for the first time and tried their whiskey, is the weather and how quickly that's kind of impacting the age and complexity of the whiskey. So it's not just about the heat here; it's about the variability of temperature in Austin, especially in the fall and the spring. You'll have nights that are 40 degrees and days that are 90 degrees. So you get that constant up and down. So the barrel is like absorbing and pushing out the whiskey constantly. And I found that develops a lot more complexity very quickly. And it's pretty unique to the Texas climate, I think.
That's good. I mean, we're in Florida. We've got a lot of Florida whiskeys here, but I think the last time that we've seen below 70 was like 1998. So
exactly, yeah, and it's that variability that people miss when they talk about Texas whiskey. You hear a lot of like, oh, it's really hot, so the whiskey's aging quickly. Like, it's not just about that; it's the up and down that matters.
Brandon, you guys do a variety of spirits right now, right? It's not just whiskey. I think there's gin, maybe. Any other spirits in the pipeline?
So we're primarily focused on whiskey. We released a gin about two and a half years ago or so. The connection there, we're pretty proud of, in that we actually make the base of the gin from scratch. So most gin distilleries will just buy neutral grain spirit, water it down, add your botanicals, maybe do a distillation run with that. We make the base from scratch ourselves using primarily rye grain, and our still, like we couldn't even make vodka on our still if we wanted to. We can't get up to proper neutral grain spirit levels because it's a custom still that's designed for whiskey. So we bring it close up to NGS, but not quite, which leaves flavor in that base. So it's a rye gin is what we call it primarily, and you get that flavor on the nose when you smell it, when you taste it. There's also a little bit more weight to it than you get with a lot of gins. It has like a viscosity, a mouthfeel. And so we're pretty proud of that gin, and that's actually about to go through a rebrand. If anybody goes and Googles us and looks it up, it'll be aligned with this bottle, this label in the next few months. We're working with the same artist to do a different label for the gin as well. So we're super proud of that. Beyond the gin, we're not focused on any other clear spirits. We'll never do a vodka or tequila, anything like that. We're a whiskey company, and that's in our name. And so we've laid down a wide variety of mash bills right now that we're, for a lot of it, just kind of testing. We only want to release stuff when it's ready. So we actually have a wheated bourbon laid down that's older than this 2-year-old rye we released, but it's not ready yet. We're letting it age. We anticipate we'll probably release it as a bottled in bond a year or two from now. But we have a blue corn mash bill we've been working on, a Jimmy Red mash bill we've been working on, and a lot of other small batch releases as well. We might get into talking about the Distillers Reserve series. We have one of those coming out on Halloween, actually, called Monster Mash. It's kind of a fun story behind how that was created. If you want
that is actually one of the things I wanted to talk about, because I saw that label, man, and if I could do a round trip flight to pick up one of those bottles, man, that label's amazing. I've got a little display with all the label art that I really, really like from like single barrels, and I've got a Kazuban like hand painted bottle, and
yeah,
I try to collect the cooler labels, and that thing was awesome. It was like, it was just kind of punk rocky, which that's what I grew up in. So.
Yeah, I worked with an artist named Dan Grissom here in Austin for that label, who primarily does like concert posters for people. Very much got that art style. It's not anything I've seen similar to any other whiskey label out there, but that's exactly what we're going for. I mean, same thing with the musician here. It's a little bit different than a lot of what you see out there, and we think that represents our city really well. But yeah, with the Distillery Reserve series, my goal is just to get really funky and weird with it as much as I can. You know, it's a super limited release. I think I was hoping we'd end up with 420 bottles of the Monster Mash, and I think today we figured out it's 419, which is a bummer. But we got real close, and that'll sell out the day it gets released. Like we'll get a line here at the distillery. I was talking with our manager earlier today about how we're going to handle that crowd. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, excellent problem. So, give us some idea of what it's like. So you manage the distillery. So tell us a little bit about the day-and-day grind of managing the distillery. You said you're getting ready to prepare for a release. I've been to a couple releases here in Nashville, and it can get pretty crazy. So what's that look like on day to day?
It's fairly all over the place. I counted the other day, and including like consultants that we work with on a day-to-day basis, I think I have 11 direct reports right now. So I mean, we could have a whole separate call about learnings about management, how to manage a team of people, and allocate your time appropriately. But we have a lot of different things going on. I mean, between the production operations, the tasting room, and now that we're reopened there and what's going on with that, our sales team, the functions there. A lot of what I've done in the last year has been just kind of trying to rebuild the team and make sure that we have people sort of running every department who know what they're doing even more than me. So kind of what I view my role as is kind of putting the bumpers on all of our employees and making sure that we're all pointed in the right direction, and then largely letting the people we've brought in kind of run their part of the show. So we've hired quite a few people in the last year since I came on board, and we're going to continue hiring more salespeople, more marketing people as well. This last year has been pretty nuts, as you can imagine. I mean, we had a lot of our budget going into this year allocated towards on-premise activations as like a key way to build the brand. So we had a crew of people running a brand ambassador program that was mostly focused on onboarding bartenders, getting them to do events and trainings and those sorts of things in bars and restaurants. Come March, that all had to get thrown out the window. So we've reoriented quite a bit, refocused on the off-premise. We're doing, now that we're able to do tastings again, with a third-party agency, we're doing a lot of those, a lot of pushing with, local liquor stores and the chains here in Texas. But we're focused on Austin more than anything else, and we're only selling here in Texas. Our mantra at the moment is win our backyard. So that's kind of the beat that everyone is marching to on the team right now. We're hyper focused on Texas at the moment, but we're planning on launching in other states next year. So if you guys want to lobby for Florida or Tennessee, I don't know where you are, David.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, is where are you guys distributing? So I guess I have my answer. But yeah, we're like the redheaded stepchild of the union here. I mean, there's grocery stores you can walk into all over not grocery stores, but liquor stores all over where there's, Eagle Rare and Saz and everything right there on the shelf. And in Florida, you don't even want to post anywhere that you found that stuff because everybody and his mother will make a beeline for it or drive the clerk crazy calling, hey, you got any more of that Blanton? So, yeah.
Yeah, we're like in this spot where you'll see Blanton's on the shelf for like, all the sketchy liquor stores that get an allocation of it, I saw a $7.50 of Buffalo Trace at a liquor store not but 2 miles from my house at $59.99.
Whoa!
Yeah,
that breaks my record. Mine was $42 just last week.
But if you're gonna spend around that,
Florida. We're definitely needy down here. Yeah, it's like the daily hunt. I drive I work with the restaurants all day. I'm in the restaurant delivery business, so I get to try and find liquor stores and, Walmart liquor stores and any place I can find, hole in the wall places to score. And it's getting harder and harder, stuff that used to be fairly easy to get, like Buffalo and Eagles, getting harder. So yeah, we definitely could use some more variety down here. So I hope Florida's at least on your radar, if not on your list.
Well, it is now.
We need more good whiskey down here.
I'm just going to go over to Greg's house and try your stuff anyway. So,
That's true. Or sometimes I home deliver it. I'll drive it across the bridge and we'll just sit at his table.
That's true. Greg has a podcast, and we've done that as well. I think last year we did, or was it earlier? Yeah, last year we did a stag and all the pappies and stuff. So
Nice.
he's got all kinds of irons in the fire. He's like my my bourbon go-to. Sometimes I curse him because I used to be happy just drinking something simple like Basil Hayden's, and which you can get anywhere, right? But now, thanks to him, I'm cursed with self-awareness. So yeah,
that is the curse of learning about something like that, right? I mean, man, I had that with the World of Wine when I spent, it was like 4 or 5 years of my life doing the sommelier route and all that. And now, hell, I'm not going to go out and pay $40, $50 for a bottle of wine and drink it in one night. So
yeah.
So pivoting a little bit with that Monster Mash release that you guys have coming out, we were talking about the label, we were talking about all of that. That is like super limited release, right? There's like, what is it, 100 bottles or something like that?
we'll end up, we'll have 419. I think at the end of the day, once we're actually bottling tomorrow morning, so I'll know for sure exactly how many we have. But yeah, we're planning on a line of ultra limited releases just at the distillery, a series we're calling the Distillery Reserve Series. We've encouraged our head distiller, and thankfully he had done this a few years ago, even before I'd come on board, to have fun, mess around, do different stuff, see what works, and whatever ends up being good, we'll release. So we've released one other product in this series last November, which was the same bourbon mash build that's in this, but finished in a sherry rye cask, which was great. And we planned on doing 6 more Distillery Reserve Series releases this year, but again, with March and COVID happened, that all got thrown out the window. The tasting room shut down, so that product is just sitting and aging right now that we planned on releasing. So this will be the first in this series that we've done this year, but we plan on keep releasing these fairly regularly going forward. We actually have another one coming in November, which would be 100% rye, finished in a sherry cask for like 8 months.
Well, there you go.
So, like, shipping is out of the question.
Yeah, you're gonna have to take a road trip, man.
You guys, if you guys want to have us out, like,
yeah.
Let's sidebar after the call. We'll figure something out.
Nice.
But I've been wanting to get over that way anyway, child. But yeah, just pivoting back, man. This is phenomenal. For as young as it is, it kind of blew my mind because I get sent stuff pretty regularly to review, and some of it's kind of young, some of it's like 2 year, 3 year, whatever. But the thing is this it kind of holds up on its own with the stuff that's 5, 6 years aged. It's kind of incredible how something so young just sticks in with stuff that's been in a barrel so much longer. Are you guys have plans to age longer and have?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we make sure to be. This is theoretically infinitely available. Like we'll be able to package to our sales growth capacity and beyond. But we're setting a lot aside to age. So bottled and bond series will definitely be a thing in 2 years when that comes of age. We have other mash bills that are laid down specifically for that too. So super excited about that. That's to take a quick step back and just talk about the industry a little bit more. The sort of strange thing about whiskey is it's different than beer or wine or hard cider, like I mentioned I was involved with, in that what the big guys make is actually pretty good, right? I'm holding up to that. So 15 years ago, when some of the first breweries were coming on board and could go and say, hey, here's my IPA, and this is why it's so different than the Miller Lite you're used to drinking, and this is why it's worth, spending more money on it, and it's higher ABV, and it's better quality, and blah, blah, blah. Like, that was a differentiation point that every other type of alcohol has, and like whiskey and spirits don't quite as much, right? Like, what the big guys make is great, and craft has a really hard time holding a candle to that. So that's a big reason why I, chose to move here and take this job, is when I came down and tasted what was aging and saw what their production capacity was. I was like, holy shit, if I can say that. Like, they're making really great whiskey. It's aging very quickly because of the weather down here, and they have an opportunity to grow and be huge. So that's why I took the job.
Hey, Brandon. So, you talk about being a craft distillery, and, there's quite a few craft distilleries out there. It's really kind of, all the rave right now. Everybody's got a little different approach to how they get started. And a lot of distilleries source a lot of bourbon or whiskey right out of the gate. Now, is that something you guys did or consider doing, or is that something you may do in the future?
We'll never source. No, we don't need to. We can make enough whiskey to handle, and we have made enough whiskey to handle, what we're planning on doing going forward. I'm thankful that the distillery never decided to source. That's a hard message to transition from, right? When a distillery has sourced, say MGP or Dickel or something like that, and they transition to their own stuff. Like, it's hard to make people aware of that, and it's also hard to deal with just people like tasting that change. And often the answer is, there's two questions to be asked. Can you make better whiskey than what you're sourcing? Oftentimes, for most craft distilleries, the answer is no. And can you actually make that barrel cheaper than you can buy it for? And the answer is usually no. So that's a tough decision for a lot of craft distilleries. And I get why they do it. I mean, the last distillery I ran, we did source. We worked with a master blender. We bought a bunch of barrels from MGP, and we, blended them thoughtfully, and the whiskey was great. But being a part of a distillery that did not do that and will never do that was kind of extra fun, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first connected with the founder and CEO of the company here, it was in January of last year, and he said, hey, we're going to release a 1-year bourbon later this year. And I said, hey, we're just talking right now as, industry folks. Piece of advice: don't do that. Do not release a 1-year-old whiskey. It's a terrible idea. And he's like, well, people tell us it's good, blah, blah, blah. And then I flew down a couple months later and I actually tried it, and I was blown away. And that speaks to like the level of quality we have going on here for it being a 2-year-old whiskey. Speaks to the production process we have set up, the quality of the grains we're sourcing, the actual distillery itself, and we have a custom column still that was designed specifically for the whiskey we're trying to make. The aging, that we mentioned earlier with the weather here. And then the big thing that I haven't mentioned yet is we do slow water reduction in barrel for all of this whiskey, which is a kind of a new term we're almost trying to coin here. Every single barrel that's in this bottle, we hand reduced the proof once a month for 6 months before it actually went in this bottle. So that's our head distiller once a month pulling every single barrel down, checking the proof, adding a little bit of water, checking the proof again. And then when we actually pull out of the barrels, once it's close to bottling, they're almost at bottle proof already. So where every distillery like you've ever heard of just pulls the liquid out of the barrel at barrel proof and just adds a bunch of water until it's bottle proof, like, it's done when we pull out a barrel. And we found that at those different proof levels, the whiskey is actually interacting with different components, like flavor components of the barrel. And so we're building a ton of complexity just doing that reduction in the barrel. We originally had done that with the 1 year, and that's why I was blown away when I tried it last year. And we hadn't planned on doing it with the 2 year, but we were so blown away by how big of a difference it made that we are doing that indefinitely now. Like, we were talking to our head distiller last week. we might eventually have to have a full-time staff person whose only job is to do slow water reduction on barrels. Like that's where we're getting, and it's a commitment to quality from us, and it's a big reason why this is so good. And almost nobody else does it.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Is it Still Austin because you're in Austin, Texas, or is it because the Still's name is Austin?
It's a pun that works on many levels. Yeah, I mean it's still like distillery, like our custom still Austin. Austin is a city that the local people here have complained about it changing for a long time. So it's us kind of being like, hey, we're still Austin. You know, we're here. That's a big reason why we went with a rebrand that looks like this. You know, trying to focus on. I mean, this is called The Musician. I don't know if the folks at home can see the part of the label here at the bottom. There's some gold foil there that says The Musician. We're trying to celebrate, you know, what makes Austin Austin, and what better way to start than by, you know, highlighting the music scene here as the live music capital of the world.
There, I think you can see it. Texas whiskey.
There you go. So yeah, that's I'm pretty proud of that piece of art that's on there. We worked with a local artist here named Mark Burkhart, who actually had done a whiskey label before. He did for Compass Box, their Peat Monster. So the same artist that did Peat Monster for Compass Box did this for us, but he's a local guy here in Austin, and that is actually a painting that you see there on the bottle, hand painted by him just for us to represent the musician, the archetype of Austin.
And that is super cool. And the crazy thing is it's almost, I mean, it's 100 proof, almost 100 proof, 2-year-old bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
And it does not taste 100 proof. I mean, it drinks way smoother.
Right.
And the amount of flavor density packed into each pour is, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's funny because, you know, we tend to, when we're rating things and when we're doing our reviews, we'll be pretty transparent and say like, hey, we kind of rank stuff that's like 3 years and under in its own category.
Yeah.
But this is just a breakout, man. This is just a total breakout from that age bracket. And I mean, I don't even, it's just going to be so insanely flavorful in another 2 years when you guys have that, you know, the bottled and bond series. It's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah, I just imagine that bottled and bond gives me chills thinking about it.
Kind of me too.
Yeah, I mean that's why I took this job and why I moved down here. Like the whiskey is fantastic. And so say one more thing about the slow water reduction real quick. We can actually test that in real time by taking one of these barrels that has been slow water reduced to nearly bottle proof and grab another barrel that's the same mash bill, same age, that's not in the slow water reduction program, and water that down to the same proof and taste those side by side. It would blow your mind, the difference between those two. It's really obvious how big of a difference that makes for us. You know, and like I said, there's extra cost and labor associated with that, but we're committed to doing that long term.
Excellent, man. Well, we're about T-minus 60 seconds, but everybody.
Oh, is this only half an hour? Okay.
Half an hour.
I didn't know.
Sorry, I can't join you guys. I got a 3-hour ball game ahead of me. Got to pace myself.
No worries. Well, sorry, I didn't know we were ending in 60 seconds there. I wouldn't have.
Well, I mean, we can hold out for a little bit longer.
It's a great deal. We can go as long as you want. Yeah, I think it's interesting what you were saying about the aging, because I think, at least for me, you know, we're so conditioned to, you know, 8 year, 7 year, 10 year, 15, and it can't be good, you know, if it's not aged. But a lot of times, you know, there's a couple of Facebook pages that Greg and I are on. One is his own, and people will do like blind taste tests, and it's interesting sometimes what comes out ahead of more expensive, you know, quote unquote aged whiskeys or bourbons. So I think we need to like get out of our head sometimes and just, you know, be adventurous, which I am all for.
I actually went to a bottle share where we did $30 and under bottles, and we wrapped them so no one could see what the bottles were. And Will, do you know what won?
Evan Williams.
Very old Barton white label.
Very old.
Oh, don't say that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Woo.
I was disappointed. It beat Old Granddad, and I was like, "There's no way." I voted Old Granddad.
I think there's a tendency with whiskey geeks to overvalue the age of bourbon generally. I mean, especially because it has to be aged in new charred casks. You know, often it's too much. I mean, for me, for a lot of like Kentucky bourbons, like 6 to 8 years is kind of the sweet spot. And after that, it's just maybe personal preference, but I find it just gets too oaky. You know, I've had all of the Pappies, oak bombs, you know. I don't know if it's sacrilege to say, but
no, I'm right there with you, man. Old Rick favorite, remember, Greg? Yeah.
12 years, so we're already on the controversial side. But yeah, I mean, so if you, I mean, we're gonna have this as a podcast. We're gonna have it, you know, immortalized on YouTube. So don't do anything embarrassing. No, I'm just kidding. But no, but it really, if you could communicate, you know, what just in summation of all the stuff we've talked about, the uniqueness of the grain, the age. If you had an elevator pitch to the everyday drinker that picks it up and says, like, I don't know about this. I haven't, it's new. Let's just say it's new to the state. They haven't picked it up before. They're looking at the price point and they're like, what makes me want to spend the money on this? What would your elevator pitch be for why they should buy and try?
I think I'd talk about Texas whiskey being a meaningful category. That's a big thing that we're working on with other distilleries here in the state. I think this is a unique region. There's a lot of great whiskeys coming out of this area. The grains we're sourcing are fantastic. And like I said earlier, they're different than what's being sourced elsewhere. So there's almost a terroir, like to Texas whiskey, to use a wine word. And we're really proud of that. I mean, and the other thing I think specifically to Still Austin that I talk about is the meticulousness of every step of the process. I mean, sourcing chef's quality grains, we're milling them, mashing on site, and then the slow water reduction in the barrel is such a huge thing for us. I mean, we're fortunate that it's not just about the branding. I mean, the branding is fantastic, and it's a big part of what's been lighting the world on fire with this whiskey now that we've released it. But when people taste it, like, you know, that's all you need to do. Just taste it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'd agree. It really kind of knocked my socks off when Aaron sent it over to us. I was hesitant at first because I was like, I'm in Florida. You guys don't have a distribution channel here. I've never heard of it. Yeah. And I'm always a little wary of stuff I've never heard of. And I mean, I poured it, and we actually, I mean, my friends come over every now and again, and we'll just sit around the table. I'll throw some food on the grill, and we'll just sit around and go into the cabinet and just start pulling out bottles. And this was one. I've even got one friend he's kind of in the whiskey infancy, if you will.
Yeah,
where he's just learning about all the different types of whiskeys, and he's kind of hard to please, and it's got to be smooth, and it's got to be, you know, it can't be too much of one thing, it can't be too spicy, it's got to be around, you know. Well, you Dave, you guys remember when 95 proof for us, we were like, that's a little hot, you know, when we were first starting, and he, I mean, man, he was asking for like thirds, like he didn't want to go on to some of the other bottles that we pulled out, and I was like, dude, like, that is a great testament to the variability and the pliability of the whiskey. I mean, I'd consider myself somewhat of a veteran at this point, just on the tasting arena. Will, you too? You know, Dave, you as well. And yeah, I mean, I was very, very impressed with it and very pleased with it. And then you've got somebody who is brand new to whiskey and doesn't know a lot, who's wanting to stay on it. you know, stuff that
I don't know if I've ever thought about it quite in that way, but it does kind of strike the balance between being unique and approachable at the same time, right? Like it's not like a lot of other bourbons out there, but it is super friendly.
Yeah, that'd be a good slogan: unique, yet approachable.
Yeah, there you go. I'll give you guys credit when our marketing team rolls that.
Put us in like little quotes, like unique yet approachable whiskey culture.
5 stars.
Like they do the movie posters, like whiskey culture said unique yet
There
approachable.
you go.
We like it. It's got to be good.
And I mean, I think a big part of just with going back to the branding real quick, like what I intended to do with this is something that's different as well. I mean, it's fun to go to, say, the local Total Wine and see this on the bourbon shelf because it stands out. Like it's different than anything else that's on there. And we very deliberately tried to not be kind of all things to all people. You know, that label might not resonate with everybody, but it really resonates with the people it does. And we're fortunate that we were able to find that artist and get that label made.
Excellent, my friend. Well, I am thankful that you came on and shared it with us, guys. Still Austin. Keep an eye out over the next, what would you say, like couple of years as distribution channels start opening up in different states.
Yep, we'll open up a few states next year. More as a test than anything else. You know, we want to be kind of slow and thoughtful about launching other states. It's easy to get high on finding new distributors and opening up new states and getting those initial shipments and whatnot, but it's not good for long-term brand growth strategy. Texas is a pretty big state, so we're focused on here for this year. We'll be launching a few states next year. It sounds like Florida needs to be on the short list.
We share the Gulf of Mexico with you. I think it's only fair.
Hey, good point. That's a great point.
If you stick to those states, you'll be in good shape.
So yeah, we have, to be frank, very aggressive growth plans. We're planning on growing quickly. I think the branding and the whiskey holds up to that plan. So you should start seeing us around, but we're doing it thoughtfully as well.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on and sharing a bit about you and Still Austin. Guys, keep a lookout for it. Very good if you're new to whiskey. Very good if you're a veteran. It's going to be extremely impressive if you're a veteran. It's going to be extremely enjoyable if you're new. So thank you so much for coming on and taking the time with us. And we hope to see everybody for next Whiskey Wednesday. Thank you all.
Thanks, guys. Great to talk.
Thanks, Brandon.
Brandon.